do you feel about that?
Hey, I'm from a big tech background, whether it be medicine, healthcare, or straight up technology. And I'm used to the innovation. It's actually exciting. So,
That's one of the things I want to talk to you about, how you went from one to the other. So, for those who don't know, this is Dr. Camille White. She has an extensive background. I would definitely love her to go into that herself. But she is definitely passionate about female entrepreneurs and moving in the direction of maintaining mental health, being your authentic self. And that's one of the reasons why I actually connected with her on TikTok. But without further ado, Miss White, please tell us your background. How are you?
I'm great. So, my name is Dr. Camille White. I alluded to this previously and probably in some of my TikTok videos. I came through medicine. So I spent 17 years in the medical environment. Started off years ago taking care of an aunt with multiple sclerosis and became intrigued with that. Later on, worked in the hospital as a dietary aide, pharmacy technician, phlebotomist, all the things before going to medical school, and then actually got an undergrad degree in biology, chemistry, a master's in health administration. At the same time, I was doing my medical studies and really enjoyed it, the scientific aspect of it. That was my dream. You know how they say, what do you want to be when you grow up, when you're in the sixth grade? And that's what I shouted out and got on that path. But once I was there, it turned out to be something different. I loved taking care of people. I loved that aspect of it, but the business of medicine and the microaggressions came to the forefront. And it didn't align with who I was as a person and my spirit, actually. And at the time, I didn't realize it wasn't aligning. I thought that it was me. I had to be bigger and better and come to a better understanding. And along the way, I started to fit myself into a box, especially as a Black woman. I'm Gen X. And, I had the relaxed hair and the perfect diction of what it was supposed to be. I have my body type. I'm 6 foot tall, very slim build, not a lot of curves or anything like that. And that's pretty acceptable to the predominant people in society. I had all the grays, the bells, the whistles, and thought I would be a good fit. I was thinking about the mind and the intellect. But once I got there, there were these microaggressions. You don't fit in. Nobody cares what you're saying. Even though I had written papers for scholarly organizations, I had done clinical research, I had worked for the National Institutes of Health, there was always this tone of, you're not good enough, you shouldn't be here, and you don't fit in. And when you're constantly told that, you try to do better, 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 and it can cause exhaustion. And eventually, that is what happened to me. Although, I enjoyed being in the clinics, things like that. I just wasn't sleeping at night and developed fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. I had stiffness, soreness in all my muscles, and went to doctor after doctor after doctor. And they were saying, there's nothing we can do for you. And, well, maybe you weren't a good fit in the first place. And I eventually found doctors that will help me, but they were in alternative medicine. They were doing Reiki and energy work and acupuncture and mindset, and it was so appealing to me because I was always happy-go-lucky, and that was the space that I came out of as a kid. And traditional medicine stripped that away. But I had been trained to believe in clinical research, FDA approval, and back then a lot of those modalities weren't accepted. But that is how I got well. And so I pivoted out of traditional medicine and then went into government space where I did digital health. And I had to, it was a boots, it was pulling myself up from the bootstrap. They didn't even have a curriculum for it. So I developed the curriculum and started working with the technologists to create apps that would help people in healthcare. Went from the government space then to the big tech space, working for companies like Oracle and Salesforce, but still using my craft, the medicine, and then started noticing these people are depressed and they're suffering. So then I brought the mindset work in when I was coaching teams, and then I created my business. So one of the things that I believe in is that we're all on this life journey, and some people will try to convince you that the skills and the techniques that you've learned in the past don't apply to your present or even your future. And it's just not true. It's up to us to encompass all of that and build on it. So that's just a little bit about my story.
I love your story. Okay, so going a little bit back to what you're saying about microaggressions and actually questioning, like, is it you? Is it me? How did you come to the consensus that it may be a little bit of me, but this is definitely not me? How did you
It took me
categorize?
years. It took me years. So once I healed my body and I did the small things to heal my body that were actually big things, like going out in nature and walking, because in the clinics, you're there all day. I'm Gen X and my family loved R&B. We had Luther Vandross playing, on the vinyl record. And I had been in the clinic in the hospital so long working that, I was around family and they were playing Luther Vandross. I was like, who is that? They were like, what? What is wrong with you? So, so when I got sick, I just thought it was me.
Yeah.
And when they said I wasn't good enough through the microaggressions, I thought it was me. And so I would double back. And so all of a sudden I'm working 2 and 3 times as hard, limiting myself on sleep, not having the proper nutrition, wiping myself out. So I thought it was me. And even when I left, I thought I'm leaving because I'm sick. And when you're sick, you're thinking you're not good enough. And, we're taught to have ice water veins. If you're sick, there is a deficiency in you. Even though we're in the healing profession, this is what I thought. And it wasn't until I got with this alternate group of physicians who taught me these modalities. And I'm thinking, is this real? This can't be real. I was taught, what? They had left medicine and gone into Reiki, massage therapy, and said, there is a holistic approach to it. So I was kind of like on the fringes of medicine, no longer accepted by this core group, but now I'm with this other group. And that's where the reality of it is. I grew up with the microaggressions, so I didn't realize that they were microaggressions, because you're labeled as a Black person as just not being good enough, not having it. And even in corporate America, I had a boss, I had landed this $1 million deal, and she was telling me how worthless I was, and she was kind of rattling it off. And, my head was kind of going down and down and down. And then something said, girl, you the bomb. Who is she? It was like this voice, through your affirmations and your work. This voice said, girl, you are loved in your community. Do not let her tell you otherwise. And, my head came back up and I just started really listening to what she was saying to me. And something was like, we gonna get this money and just keep it moving. And I'll never forget it. It was like a voice that was like, no, no, no.
Sometimes you have to go through things to know that you know things.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll say too that it takes some bravery to realize that you're more than your situation, because you've been taught this one career path and how you're aligning. But I can honestly say the field that I'm in now, besides from my business, the field of digital health and even the mindset work and the type of coaching that I do was not in existence when I was in college. It just was not there. And so you have to be innovative and always thinking, pushing the envelope. Heck, YouTube, you even had YouTube stars. Someone would have laughed if you said, hey, I can make a living doing YouTube. What?
I think that I caught myself going through that exact thing where people were like, well, you're a content creator and you're a coach online. I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, that's not a real job. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess that's not a real job. So I took it upon myself to open up a salon. I'm a licensed cosmetologist. And I was like, sometimes you do listen to those voices and you're like, yeah, but it's so true. There's so many YouTube creators, there's so many amazing creatives that are online. And it's like, that's how they started. They started with bravery, like you said, believing themselves and doing something different. So how did you make that pivot from going to the medical to where you are now? Like, how did you make that pivot?
So, an unlikely person told me that you have to watch out because not only is the world changing constantly, but the regulatory environment changes as well, right? Um, and I really thought about that. This person, I was at a church and I was working with people who had been in the criminal system and they had gotten out and they were building new lives. This person had been in jail for 10, 15 years. He came out with a successful life, owned multiple homes, all of the things, no degree. So he's able to do it without this degree. And he told me the way that he did it was he watched out for different opportunities. There was a grant that he found to help him buy a house. And he said, when different licenses became available for him, he plugged into that. So I had been in the clinical environment and I knew the patient workflows. When the regulatory environment changed and said everything needs to go digital, I had the insight to help that industry go digital. They had the technologists, the developers, but they didn't know how doctors thought about things. They didn't know the insurance companies. They didn't know the pharmaceutical companies. They didn't know the technology companies. They didn't know what kept the doors of the hospital open. And they also didn't know the coding. So what codes are we using to get the revenue that we need to keep the healthcare industry going? And so I did, and I started talking to people about, my offering, and they were saying, oh, this company is hiring for that, or people are looking for folks like you. And I started to get the different contracts, and I would move from contract to contract and build a business doing that too. So it was like I started just, pushing.
Started pushing back and you started to get results. So I'm sure while you were pushing, you're getting a lot of no's in the process.
Oh, all the time, all the time. And I didn't know the language, the technology language. I knew how to talk healthcare. I didn't really know how corporate level or government jobs worked. And so even coming from Ohio, because now I'm in the DC area, I didn't even know what a livable wage was. So I had to learn, what do they pay for this type knowledge? And in my mind, being a doctor was the highest echelon. You're making the most money being a doctor. But then when I got to technology, I'm like, they making doctor money? What are we doing here? And so, again, I had to be taken seriously as a Black woman with all the degrees and the credentials that I had. People tend to lean towards the negative. And the question was, well, what's wrong with you that you're not in healthcare anymore? And for me, I was caught by surprise. What do you mean, what's wrong with me? And then I had to learn that this is the way that they think. So I need to be able to stand on my value and articulate the value that I bring and let them know that this was a decision that I made, that I had solved the problems, I had accomplished X, Y, and Z in medicine. And now I was going after my next challenge. And that's what we should do whenever we're interviewing or whenever we're presenting ourselves. We have to find out what the next job, what problems they're trying to solve, and the value that you bring to the table, and how you can push them forward and bring in more revenue for them.
That sounds quite familiar, being a content creator. That's pretty much what we do on a different scale. That's so interesting.
Yes, it is what we do, right? Your content, people have to buy into it, and you have to get the visibility and all of that. And I would say I see you have the numbers. It looks fantastic.
Thanks. I'm going to continue. I did put this down for a while because I opened that salon, and it was like, I've been in the industry, did corporate, did brand ambassadorship. Like, this should be my next step. But for some reason, I was called towards this direction, and so numbers don't lie. So I'm going to continue going in this direction. Yeah.
How long have you been doing it?
Since the pandemic. So yeah, because they closed down all the salons, I was like, what other skills, what other value can I bring to the table if I don't have a salon, or I'm not in that space? And so I started with doing marketing for nonprofit organizations, Child Find, the DARE program. And so um, I'm great with PR, I'm great with people, I'm great with finding the problem, finding a solution, and moving through it. So, and adaptability. So I was like, I can teach that.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's that grit and gumption, right? Because
Yes.
you don't always take off immediately. And you will have people in your ear saying, oh, it's not successful. Or else they'll say 50% of businesses fail within the first year. And that will resonate in your mind. But what about all the ones that are successful? What about
Yeah.
those? So why can't you keep going?
Yeah. And it's true. Like, you do like, there's some people that I would work with that were like, people pay for their clicks or pay for that. And I was like, everything that I've done was always organic marketing. And I wanted to keep it that way, talking about spirituality, hypnotherapy. Like, that's not something that you play with, right, when it comes to other people's energy. And so I thought it was an interesting parallel when you're saying you started to work with a lot of natural paths, a lot of healers. Can you talk about that specific time in your life, how that played a role in getting to where you are now?
Right. It's so interesting because I had forgotten about it because it was so long ago. And then it was in 2023, I started really connecting with more of a natural, a very vibing high community that were really plugging into their authentic selves. So here I am. I am from traditional medicine, right?
Yeah.
And that seems to fly in the face of traditional medicine. And I thought to
Yeah.
myself, so with fibromyalgia, I had muscle pain and aches throughout. There was a time, probably for about 5 years, where it was difficult for me to walk. I couldn't raise my hand to comb my hair. I had to take a deep breath to put one leg in my pants. And then I would lean against the bed, take another breath through the pain to get dressed. I would challenge myself to get up and walk to the bathroom, one step at a time. If I had to walk upstairs, I'd get into my apartment and shut the door and just collapse in that space to breathe through the pain. It was so difficult. And at the time, I had friends, but those friends started to drift away because you're now in this different state, right? And you're not of value to them, right? you're not that same person. And so I had to get really gritty, what is it that I could do? And a friend from medicine called me. Her name was Wanda. And she said, girl, I heard what happened to you. I want you to go see this doctor. His name is Dr. Shear. And we were in Columbus, Ohio, because I was at the Ohio State University College of Medicine, Academic Medical Center. And she said, I want you to go see him. And this lady Wanda, she was kind of woo-woo anyway, right? And so I went to see this Dr. Shear. And he was like, yes, I'm expecting you. Little old white guy. And he was doing medicine out of his home. I was like, this is kind of suspect, right? But let me go in, because I had seen all the traditional medicine people and they just had kind of washed their hands of me. Maybe this is all in your head, psychosomatic or whatever. So we go in, girl. Dr. Shear takes me in the back and he says, so he knows I'm a doctor. And he says, I want you to look at these tinctures that I have. This fool pulls out a pendulum and says, I can't decide which one you should take. And he lets the pendulum swing till it lands on one. I was like, no, we ain't doing this, right? I get the tincture and he's like, take this, put a couple drops under your tongue. And so, I started doing this. I'm like, is this going to kill me or what? I started doing it. And then he started teaching me about the water. I just want you to drink spring water. And this was an old guy. I want you to drink spring water. And then he opened a door where he started introducing me, not a literal door, but I guess a vortex, right? Where he started introducing me to all these people who were medical doctors, but they decided traditional medicine really wasn't getting people well, and they want to bring in this holistic aspect. And I went in, and since I was a doctor, like in the family, they would allow me to cut the line ahead of their patients. So I go see someone and they say, yeah, we were expecting you. Dr. Shear said you would come. I went to this lady's house and her office was in her basement too, because at the time you couldn't necessarily get insurance reimbursement. People were paying out of the pocket. But if you're sick, you're not working. And so they had very little, and she would just pay them. She would let them pay what they could afford. Girl, I went in this basement. People sitting along the wall, and they're like in plastic chairs and whatnot. And they're like nodding their head like, she's good. She pricked my finger and she took a drop of blood and she put it on a microscope slide. And she put a layer of plastic over it. And she said, we're going to look under this microscope and look at your blood work. There's something called cellular garbage. And sometimes when you've accumulated too much of it, I'm thinking, I ain't never read that about no cellular garbage. So, I started kind of like working with these people. They introduced me to Reiki and, let's look at the pattern on your feet. I'm doing like all these therapies and I'm not paying for them because I didn't have the money, but just eventually getting up, letting the worries and the anxieties drift away, going out into the sunshine, walking as much as I could to build up, allowing myself to smile, laugh, touching leaves, just things, kind of like what people say, dilly-dallying.
Yeah.
Eating fresh foods, allowing myself proper rest. And I started to turn a corner and get healthier. And so with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, this can be a lifetime debilitating disorder. Some people still don't walk, and some people have comorbidities that go with it. But here I am walking and talking, and so when I went to this new group who was really plugged into the authentic, this, that, and the other, and I was like, yeah, I remember a time when that happened. They were like, what? But then they started asking me questions like, well, do you think the body can really heal itself? We don't even need pharmaceutical medications and things like that. And I said, you're taking it a little too far. I said, because there are structural deficits that some person might have. Like if you need surgery on your heart, you definitely need that. But then you use, the pharmaceuticals, things like that to enhance it. But then you change your lifestyle, you clean up your lifestyle, you clean up the foods. But mindset, the fact that I thought I could get better was really opening up, what you call that vortex, right? Getting that health out of it. That to me, when I think about it, who is I to dare to say I'm getting better? Because I
Yeah.
remember, at this time I was into Christianity. I remember tearing the pages out my Bible, like, this is a lie. I was throwing it out the window. My friend was like, get yourself together. Get yourself together. And I sat on my bed. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And I'm hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands of dollars in debt from medical education. And people were saying, you'll never, there's, what other path are you going to take? You're ruined.
Yeah.
Girl, I went into tech and, you know, did my thing. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. So Woo Woo Wanda, do you still talk to do you still talk
I
to
haven't seen her in many years. I know that she
really?
went on like the traditional path. I know she married like an Indian guy, Black woman. I think she married an Indian guy, but I haven't seen a lot. I haven't seen any of those people unless they reach out to me. I had a friend and he graduated from Yale. He was in medicine. He wanted to be a surgeon. And I think he missed like his match date or something. And at the time, he reached out to me. I think he meant to be flattering, but it was kind of insulting. He was like, "Yeah, because you like you one of like the few people I know that have left medicine and been able to do the thing." And I was like, But at the companies that I went with, there were a group of doctors, a handful of us, who were
Yeah.
into tech as well. So it's believing that you can pivot. It really is looking at the skill set that you have, determining where you can plug it in, and getting with someone who can guide you. And that is why I set up my business. I always tell people I'm here to inspire, motivate, and challenge you to navigate your career, have less stress, and more success for better health outcomes.
I love
It's
that.
the navigation piece. I just didn't have anyone to help me navigate. And I said, okay. Another key thing is I was in a sorority for like 30 years. And
Really?
I joined as an undergrad. And in college, we really helped each other. Girl, they're hiring over here. You get your sorority sister a job, or girl, I got an apartment over here. See if you can get one. And we shared that information. And then as a member of grad chapter, at the time I was in New York and there were all kinds of people there. And I was in Ohio and someone said, well, when you're ready to move, it's a soror in Maryland. I'll talk to her and see if you can stay in a room, at her. She got a new house down there. You could stay in one of the rooms. And I called this person. I didn't know her. And she was like, yeah, come on down. So, and along the way in medical school, I did that too. Like I wrote a letter to someone in New York and she was like, yeah, girl, you can come stay with us. And I get there and her sister was like, we got kids in the house. We don't even know this person. And you inviting them to live in the house with us? And, I stayed
Risky.
there. Yeah, I stayed there and went to my rotations and came home. And after a while, the kids were calling me auntie or, whatever. It really is that genuine network. And we're like family now. They came to visit me in Virginia, Northern Virginia. And so, yeah, it's surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, want to uplift you, want to speak life into your situation, people you can laugh with and enjoy too.
I 100% agree. For me, it's the authenticity, right? Like dealing with healing energy, we talk a lot about the loving energy. Um, but I truly feel like it's not possible to be in that unconditional loving energy unless you're in your authentic self, because you have your walls down, you're able to, well, yeah, it doesn't matter who's seeing you, it doesn't matter what you're doing, how you're doing it, you just know that that person sees you. So I totally agree, it is so important, the people you have around you. um going further into that, these frenemies and fake it till you make it, how have those I remember seeing one of your posts about being your authentic self, and like, who's around you may be taking notes, so sometimes it's not best to be your authentic self. And I was like, ah, damn it. That's true too. How do you
Not
walk that
everybody
line?
deserves to, not everybody deserves all of your energy, all your goodness, and all of your loving from the beginning. There are levels to it. And we have to use emotional intelligence to be discerning. God, the universe, and source gives us that level of discernment, and we have to use it. We have to stand on our intuition. And this is something as a young person I didn't realize. I just thought, hey, I'm just happy go lucky, and oh, you need money, let me and so we exist in this world with all different types of people on different levels of their journey, and they may not be enlightened yet, and they can take advantage of you.
Yeah.
So there are different levels to it. And actually, there are classes, in academia that you can take for emotional intelligence. In the
Get out.
business world, they
Uh-huh.
teach you when you go into meetings, you have to read the room.
Oh, of course. Yes. I had to learn that the hard way. The hard way.
Yes,
um, it's not something that is talked about. Yeah, that's true.
right. I have a
Yeah.
friend and he was a chaplain. And in the ministry and even in the work we do, you learn about the vibrational energy. You learn a bit about emotional intelligence, but you learn how to read people. And even as a physician, I learned how to read someone walking in the room. How are they walking? What's their gait like? What's their posture like? How are they breathing? So you can determine, what their illness is or how their movements are impacting their illness, right? So you're reading people. And so this friend who was in ministry, he built his business around connecting with other businesses who could be at risk of losing a contract. He would go and talk to their clients about the business, read their emotional intelligence, their how they reacting to it, and talk them back into the seat to
Mm,
continue to do the business. He would go and help them save contracts based
mm.
off of what he had learned in the ministry and building connection off of people.
That's so interesting. I I had a crash course on doing that. Doing business to business for salons. It's you gotta read the room. And even if you don't read the room, someone else is reading the room for you, right? Here's another thing that I think is so interesting, and you could probably touch on this a little bit more, but if you don't use your energy, someone's going to use it for you. Can
Ooh.
you please touch on that?
Now those are the vampires, right? They
Yes.
are. And even in medicine, so we would have people who were drug seekers, right? And so
Yeah.
you could watch their
Yeah.
body, how they're coming in the room, how they're sitting, and you can determine if, the level of pain that they're in, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember having a patient, it was her and her boyfriend came in the room, and she was pretty comfortable with the meds that we had her on. She was like, okay, I feel like I'm getting better. I feel like my muscles are loosening. I can breathe better. And so her boyfriend was kind of like leaning in. He wasn't married. He really didn't have a right to her medical history or anything, but he's kind of leaning in. We walk out the room, and I was kind of like suspicious of him. We walk out the room, and he's running. Hey doc, she needs another prescription for Prozac. See, so the energy was actually for her, right? The attention was
That's
for her. And
just
then
for
here
everyone
he
listening. That's an anti
that's
anxiety medication.
painkiller.
Oh, it's
That's
painkillers. Oh, okay. See,
anxiety, but it can
okay.
also, yeah, that's
Oh,
anti-anxiety.
it can
He's
do.
like, and you can take these and you can sell them on the street, things like that. He's like, she needs some more Prozac antidepressant medication. I'm like, she's not in pain. She wasn't uncomfortable. Her mental status seemed, fine. What are we? And he's like, actually, it was Percocet. He's like, I want some Percocet. So that's the pain
Sure.
medication. I'm like,
Yeah,
she's not in
yeah,
pain. She doesn't need an antidepressant. What? He's like, no, she needs more Percocet. So the energy was for her, but here he
yeah.
is swooping in. The attention was for her, and here he is kind of swooping in. But there are energy vampires, right? And family and
Unfortunately.
friends can be like first up, especially like, you know, um, the parental relationship. a mom can see that her children will do anything for her and just have them doing task after task after task. And that
Oh
can
my,
keep you,
let's talk about it.
that can keep you from going to college. That can keep you from having your own relationship. Because if you have a daughter, sometimes they want to keep that daughter around doing those little tasks.
Yeah, especially I feel like it's the oldest daughter too. Like, yeah, yeah. Can you talk about that? Did something like that? Are you the oldest?
No, I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest. Okay.
Yeah. But I have
So you,
seen it definitely. And it can be with any level of child because and it could be I was going to say it could be a daughter, but it could be a son too, right? If you have a really good son, who wants to give that good son away?
oh, if you have one son and multiple daughters, that's another thing too.
Yeah.
So have you've gone into the speaking space? Just shifting gears a little bit here, but you've gone into the speaking space a bit. Have you done any of that or?
So now, as a physician, I was always asked, oh, go speak to this group. And, even in my sorority, go speak to this. And I would go and I would think to myself, wow, I had to take time off work. I had to put time, energy, write the speech, do the presentation. This took a lot of time. And it was kind of exhausting. It never occurred to me that I should have a rate for the speaking. And so now here I am going, I need to start charging for my services. And I really started focusing on that a couple of years ago. And even through my TikTok, I will answer as many questions as I can, but it's exhausting. And so I've posted, 15 minutes is this, half hour is this, an hour is this. Because you can't be everything to every person. So, and I'll even post, I know a lot of people are looking for different jobs, career opportunities. And I'll post, this is a career fair. The link is in bio. And so people can really dig into it. Some people are appreciative and some people are like, well, I don't have time to, look through that. You're going to have to point to me what it is I should be getting exactly. And I'm just not going to do that because it takes our own individual energy and our own individual focus, even that manifesting part. Is you manifesting what you want? Is you focusing on the future you? It's not me. It's you doing that work. And so I'll take a couple steps back and I won't even respond. I'll just say,
So you're saying that you can't just pray and sit and watch it happen. I being in the healing space and the spirituality, it's that happens a lot where it's like, I'm going to take it up with the Lord in prayer. And I'm like, you know, some things, yes, you could take with the Lord in prayer, but I'm pretty sure, if you need something, the Lord put it here for you. Like we have um trees, we can build things with it. We have, there's it takes a little bit on our part to be creative and to take the first step and show the universe that, okay, this is the direction I want to go in. Now support me with it, as
right.
opposed to I'm just gonna pray about it, and if it happens, it happens. That happens a lot in our community.
But for me, that's what I was taught, right?
Me too.
Or
Yeah, me too.
or it
Yeah.
was the outlook of that person has it because their parents are rich, and so it was given to them. They didn't have to work as hard. And that's true for some people, but we live in a world of abundance, right? You
Yes.
talk about God, source, and the universe. We have to get away from that fear-based religion where we're constantly begging and saying, God, source, universe, I am an extension of you, and you have created me in your image. And what I have that I need to succeed is in me. And I'm going to work on pulling it out because you have provided abundance. And if I take one step, something is going to materialize to be that second step. and I have to keep pushing. Not saying that you won't get discouraged at times. There's been plenty of days I've been face down on the mattress, like, ugh. And then I'll get a download about, girl, get up. Did you try this, and that?
Yeah.
And you have
I
to do
remember
it.
this actually happened to me last week, and I was like, I need to figure this out. I need to figure this out. And I was like, you know what? No, I don't. I'm going to go to music bingo. I live in a small town in Canada in the Rocky Mountains, Radium, BC, and they have all these little things, these little community things that they do, and I'm like, I want to be. Everybody wants to be a part of the community, right? But sometimes it's kind of stressful if you're new. So I was just like, I'd rather be by myself and keep working on my business. But that also that grind. That's why I'm so against grind mentality now.
Yeah,
That takes away your creativity. It stifles your creativity. As
it
soon as I
does.
went to bingo, it was like poof, 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 all these things that I was like, yes, I need to remember that just
Yeah,
taking some time for yourself or having fun is a part of the creative process as well.
right. It is. If you think about it, that balance, that creativity, exercise, nutrition, loving on yourself, um, having high vibrational energy, but receiving from others too, is what life is all about. It really
Yeah.
does keep you on track. So it's amazing. It's amazing. Do you believe in the you have to post every day mentality as far as social media is concerned?
I am. I feel as though I don't post enough.
Okay.
And I
How?
post 1 to twice a day on TikTok. TikTok's my main platform. And then 3 times a week on my other platforms.
Okay. Since 2020. Okay.
Since 2020. Yeah. I've been grinding. I've been I've been out here. And I
That's
used
a
to
lot.
do lives for like 6 hours at a time. So when you're saying you just don't have that time to answer every single person's question, I would do lives for like 6 hours. And I'm
That's
like,
why you have
what am I
that's why you have the
doing?
numbers that you have, and that's why I have the numbers. I don't have those numbers. So
I
so your
guess.
mainstream of business is coming from TikTok and YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah. But and then the gurus will tell you that you're not doing enough. It's not necessarily the amount of followers that you have, it's what you do with that. Like, I really nurture my community. Like, we're love bugs, we're healing, we're all healing together. Some of us are in a different level, but we're all going in the same direction of love, prosperity, and clarity, right?
Yeah.
So I truly believe, I don't tell people who they are, I just remind them of, hey, remember you did this once upon a time? Okay, well, why don't you do that again? You know, that's really what it is that I do. And I didn't have the capacity to do that until I actually started posting on TikTok. So it was very interesting because
Yeah, I
like,
like the people that I've attracted on TikTok.
yeah, I
I
love
don't have
their,
a lot of numbers, but I mean I like them. They like my content. They're like, okay, Dr. White.
you have really great engagement for the amount of people that you have.
Yeah, I like to, answer the comments and just be encouraging because, when they say who's your right fit client, who's your perfect client, she is the old me, right? She's the one that was in corporate giving people money, right? She's the one that was lending family members thousands of dollars and not getting it back. She's the one who I told a story about how people at the job will always watch what kind of car you drive, what your husband does, how
Yes,
much.
you're
And and I remember a time I had on a dress, and a lady walked up behind me to look at the tag on the dress to see what size the dress was.
Okay.
And she said, "Oh, you wear a size 8." And I came home and I told my mother, I was like, "They always look at what size cut." She said, "No." She called them the B word. That's not a business, Camille. You And I was like, "What? Why are they doing that? They don't need to know what size you are." She said, that's women. That's how they try to get in your head and, your weight and things like that. She said, that's like a value statement to them. And I'm like, oh, or seeing where you get your clothes from and that kind of thing. I had no idea. So the old me didn't know these things. So now I drop game, right? Even when I talk about, listen, Black women, we making 63 cents to the dollar, 63 cents to each dollar that the white man makes. And so they get to work a year, 12 months, and we have to work something like 17 months just to catch up. But it's bigger than that because we give a lot of services away. We're making 63 cents, but then we speaking at everybody's church. We cooking food back there. We watching some kids. We buying coats and all
It's
this
almost
stuff.
expected of us not to, it's always expected of us because sometimes when I tell people my prices that I'm like, hey, it's been since 2020, I have to raise my prices. And they're just like, why?
So that's not your right client. And
Yeah,
so you
exactly,
know that's
exactly.
not the right client. But even to take it to the next level, we're doing all this free stuff. But then you'll have men who want to live off of us, or men who want you to pay 50-50. So I don't have the earning capacity that you do, even though I might be in a field where I'm making more money. If you were in the same field, you will be making almost twice as much, but you expect me to pay 50-50. Or you expect me to handle more of the bills, my 63 cents to your dollar. And so that right there, when you start getting into the nitty gritty of it. But I had a client too that was like, no, this is too expensive or whatever. And I said, you're not my right fit client. And she said, you need to have lower prices so that everyone can have access. And I thought about that, and I had a low price point, and I had one potential client. I was trying to work with her, but it would have taken me so much just to get her to a certain level that I said that this is why I can't work with you. You don't even have the mindset for it. I need people who at least have a basic level of understanding and a basic mindset. They understand that this is where they should be in their career, and now they're looking for somebody to help them get there. I don't have to beat them over the head and convince them. She's looking for me and I'm looking for her. Like I have some clients that say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I found you. That's my girl. So
I love that. I love, like, I didn't think that I would love it this much working with people one-on-one the way I do. But then again, once again, like you didn't think that you had the capacity because of how you were raised, right? It's like, can you talk about that a little bit? Like having to constantly fight against the way that you're raised.
girl, I will
Just
tell
to,
you, especially like this time around, so I was like, I'm going to start this coaching business. It's not your typical coaching, right? Because I talk
yeah.
about the affirmations, the spirituality, and then I'm like, okay, what kind of job you want? This is what, what's going to happen. But I want you to double down on the goodness that you have within you, kind of like it's conscious leadership, or, just being very conscious of your authentic self. And so I had gotten the LLC and, just the fundamental things, but I still wasn't moving ahead, and something was stopping me. So I did some inner child work, and I'm sitting there trying to meditate. And there it was. I was that young child. And when I was a kid, by today's standards, I would have been considered disabled because I had a club foot. I stuttered. I was small. I had a patch on one eye. And my mom would carry me. all the time. And I had a very, very soft voice, like baby talk. And now I project my voice, but it still comes across as being soft. And I'm the youngest of 4 children. I'm the baby girl, right? And I had a visualization of this young child on my mother's hip. And they're talking about this quote unquote a good job, who has a good job and who doesn't. And the person with the good job is going to this established company. They're working for this company. The person who is an entrepreneur is a hustler. They don't have steady income. They're just always trying to sell something, right? And kind of looked down on at that time. And so it was scary to walk into that hustler mentality versus the respectable, oh, she's a doctor or she works for this company, instead of saying she's working for her own company and she's figuring it out. So the inner child in me, that inner child wanted to please the parent. And I had to tell her, it's okay. It's okay to carve out your own path. You can get off that hip and we're going to walk in a different direction. Girl, and it was like the tears were coming down, and it was something. It was some, and I did this with a friend. She was just like stuck coming out of her old fantastic title to building her own business. And it turned out something happened to her in childhood where she was touched inappropriately. And she was telling the older people that this happened, and they didn't listen. And so she would be in work environments sharing her opinion, and they weren't listening. And she would say, you're not listening to me again. You're not listening to me again. And I was like, that's her. That's that inner child that was trying to express herself in that situation. And now she's in this situation, and you feel like they're not listening. So now that we found her, now that we found the struggle, let's work on that. And so that what we're taught, this pathway, get the degree, go work for someone else, do what the boss tells you to do, and it'll be all right, is not necessarily what we should be doing. And it's the struggle that creates the struggle, the tension, the turmoil. Why isn't it working? It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
It looks like crazy. You felt it.
I did. I felt it. I was once there, and that's actually one of the things that I put in my first journal or book is when we are having these disagreements, typically the first thing that you say is what you're working on subconsciously. And that's why I shifted into hypnotherapy, because I realized that everything that we do, whether we're on autopilot, what learned response, whatever, these are parts of us that are learned and programmed into us. And now that we know better, we have to reprogram ourselves. Like, there's no way around it. There's literally no way around it. Either, like you were saying, be in those situations again, and then it come out like, it just keeps those cycles. I call them karmic cycles. Same situation, different face. And you're going to keep seeing that until you're like, oh, light bulb, this actually stemmed from when I was a child, and it was no fault of my own. But right. Now that I'm an adult, I got to do something about it.
Right. Now that things are different, I can do something about it. Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's constant work. You have to do the work.
Yes. And there's no way around it. And I find intimate relationships and being in work environments, those are the two environments that have that it will come out even more if you don't deal with it when you're supposed to. But tell me, what's authentic to you now that you feel that you found, well, we're forever changing, forever adapting, but what's authentic to you at this time in your business?
Authentic to me in my business, I would say the whole journey of carving out my own path, right? And speaking that truth of meeting people where they're at, because I still carry the Dr. Camille thing, right? And so you're expecting one kind of person, and then she shows up. She shows up, and it's like, oh man,